I'm your host, Carolyn Solo, LCSW, EMDR therapist, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, and welcome to the 79th episode of the Future Template Parent Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Carolyn Solo, LCSW, PhD, EMDR consultant and business coach, EMDR therapist, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me, and Happy New Year. This episode is coming out on January 1st, 2025. Perhaps this is the first podcast episode you're listening to in 2025. Well, if so, don't I feel special? And thank you, all of you who listen and who have spread the news about this podcast. I'm so grateful. So, a New Year's episode, right? Got to start with a New Year's episode. Last week, I talked a bit about my free webinar, which is tomorrow at noon EST. If you haven't signed up yet, you still can. The title is How to Double Your Rate with EMDR Intensives. And I can't think of a better way to kick off 2025 than to start your journey with offering intensives in your practice. Show notes has the link to sign up, and I hope to see you there. But on to today's episode. Today, I thought I would talk a bit about my plans and goals for 2025, just 3 of them. I have a couple more, but these are 3 that I thought I would share about. I thought I would talk about why they feel appropriate for this stage of my business and why I'm excited about them and why they feel just like stretchy enough to be good goals. So the first goal I have is to launch and fill and complete my signature program, my group program, the EMDR Intensive 12-week intensive, 3 times over the course of this year. Yep, 3 times. January, probably May, and September. Those will be the start dates. So, and you probably know, if you've listened to me at all lately, that the next cohort starts on January 20th. So this will tick a lot of boxes for me, these 3 groups. It will help me meet some big financial goals that I have for 2025, and it will be really good for me to do this 3 times, to continue to refine the course, to make it as good as it can be. By the end of 2025, I will have run it 4 times, and I feel like that maybe hopefully will have given me the chance to really get it to be as good as it possibly can be, although everything can always be improved. And finally, it will do something. So I'll be getting, as I'm doing it every 3 to 4 months, I'll be getting a lot of consistent feedback that I can implement and just continue to make it stronger. And finally, it will do something that matters a lot to me, right? It will continue to help EMDR therapists start to offer intensives, which will allow them to find more financial security in their practice and also create more time, freedom, all of which, the time and financial freedom, which allows therapists to be more present in their non-work lives and engage in actual self-care, sustainable self-care, invigorating and life-giving self-care, which of course allows us to be more present with our clients, allows us to be the best therapists we can be. And of course, as therapists, offering intensives and providing transformational outcomes for clients, that makes all of the difference. I've said so many times that getting great results with clients reduces burnout. That is so true. And EMDR intensives will get great results with clients. So, knowing that clients, thanks to these therapists that I'm working with who are out there offering intensives, the clients will heal and progress quickly, we'll do it safely, we'll do it sustainably, that is everything. So that's a huge part of my why, right? I want intensive therapists to be part of the charge as we work to transform how therapy is conceptualized and provided, because I do think things are shifting in our world. Not everyone wants a 50-minute session every week anymore. People want other options. And, intensives, in my opinion, are one of the best alternative options out there to really provide a quality therapeutic experience that creates real change. So what are some ways that this will stretch me? Well, for those of you who have never, quote, launched a product or a service or a program, certainly you've marketed your therapy practice. but launching a program is a little different because it's this very intense burst of energy. It's a lot of work, and it's, over an intense period of time, right? I feel like the word intensive comes up all the time in everything I'm talking about. But that launch process where you're like showing up on Instagram every day in your stories, in reels, you're doing a lot of email marketing. For me, I talk about a lot on the podcast. I'm also doing a webinar, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So you have all of these things that you're doing in a very concentrated way, all at once. So it is a lot of time and energy, but it's an essential piece of getting a program full. It's what I did for my first group. And I learned a lot from the first round of launching, that things I'm going to do differently this time. And I firmly believe I can get my 8 people for this group. So it's an essential piece of getting the program full. And I also think that being forced to market in this way 3 times throughout the year, while I'm also running my groups and teaching other people to market their intensive offerings, helps me stay connected to what my group members are experiencing, right, in terms of that intensity around marketing, and helps me stay grounded in that hard work that is marketing a high ticket service. I think it feels more real to me, and I hope it does to the group members as well, when I'm kind of in it with them to some degree. It's also stretching me because it feels like maybe one more group that I'd like to run, the three group goal, but it's what I need to do to meet my financial goals. And I think it's also going to really get me to a place where the program feels really, really robust and solid. And honestly, I do know that it will feel okay while I'm doing it, like running the group itself. And that this is more coming from a place of fear, I think. Fear that there aren't enough people out there that I can fill 3 groups of 8 with, that I'm aiming too high, that I'm trying to be too big. And of course, all the marketing that goes along with it, how much, energy do I feel I'm worried that will I have enough to do that? There's 3 intense launches. So it's not, like I said, it's not coming from a fear of being able to actually do the group, like the work, showing up for the calls and doing the support of the group members in all those different ways. Because I know I can do that. That's not the hard part for me. But like what it takes to get to the point where I have those full groups, that's the part that feels like, ugh, that's the part that I don't love, but I know I have to do for that reason. That's part of the reason why I need to do it, is because I'm like, oh, I could just do 2, but I know I could do 3. And I'm going to I'm going to, put a stake in the ground and say, yes, I'm doing 3. Barring something very, very major in life, right? And yet, like, actually accomplishing that goal is really going to help me, feel super strong and affirmed in what I'm doing, and kind of talk back to those voices that are like, you can't do this. You want to be bigger than you are. You're setting your goals too high, right? I can be like, look, that was a pretty big, audacious goal, and I did it. I met it. And part of the stretching myself here is that I'm going to be doing that free webinar to kick off that January 2025 cohort launch. Last week's episode talked all about the webinar, why I'm doing it, and what it will cover. So if you want more details, you can head back there. But in brief, I will be covering over the course of 1 hour, doubling your rate with EMDR Intensives. That's the title of the webinar. And how will you do that, you ask? Well, I will teach you. Of course, I'm not going to rehash what was in the previous episode. I'm not going to redo the 1 hour script right now. But, in brief, we're going to talk clinical skills that help you feel confident in charging a premium fee, how to structure your intensive, setting an appropriate fee, marketing your intensives, and closing the deal on the consult call, right? Lots of meaty stuff in there. Do not miss it. The link to register is in the show notes, and the webinar will take place on January 2nd at 12 p.m. EST. Also, it will be recorded and sent to you afterwards if you sign up, but as an intensive, see, I can't stop saying it, incentive to show up live, I'll be giving away a free copy of my EMDR Intensive Client Workbook to one person who shows up live. So incentive there. Anyway, those are some of the details, but why is the webinar a stretch then? Well, I've never done one before. So figuring out all the logistics and planning the talk and getting my slides ready and registering people and figuring out the tech and following up and doing the emailing about it. There's a fair amount that goes into it. And I've thought about doing one before, but I've been kind of intimidated by the whole process. But I've scheduled it. I'm advertising it. I already have some people that have signed up. So, I have several people that have signed up. So it's happening, right? It's tomorrow, so it's happening. Um, right, this episode's coming out January 1st. So if you're listening to it on January 1st, Happy New Year and register. There's still time. So right, that was kind of goal one, was getting through those 3 launches successfully. So goal number 2. Goal number 2 is to do 1 intensive each month in 2025. Why do I want to do this? Well, income goals, as I've said, and also because I want to continue to feel sharp and fresh as I teach intensives to other therapists, and continue to be refining my skills and trying things out as I teach other people who are new to them. And because I love doing them. I love doing them. I hope that my passion for them comes through. I love the outcomes. I love the flow. I love the time to truly be with another person without the clock always ticking in the background. I love to see the transformation they undergo. Like, it's accompanying them on this incredible journey, and it feels like a great privilege. It's such validation for me as an EMDR clinician that healing can happen, that EMDR can provide healing. And it reaffirms for me that I have chosen this career path that aligns with who I am and who I want to be as a human being. And the connection with other people that it provides, right? The like deeply knowing someone else in this very intimate container, it's just incredible, right? It changes my view on the world, certainly, seeing, the possibilities that can happen in healing and like the incredible people that are out there in this world, Right. Intensives are enlivening and invigorating for me. And I just don't want to be one of those coaches or trainers who no longer practices the craft they teach to others, right? I remember working in education. I was a teacher for 8 years in various formats, mostly high school and middle school, a little bit of middle school, but I did teach some college classes. Um, anyway, and of course, I still teach and that was before I switched careers to become a therapist. Of course, I still teach grad classes now and then, and of course, my group program is a form of teaching. But when I was, more traditional teaching jobs where I had that was my 40-hour a week job and I was teaching 5 classes, that kind of setting, and also being an advisor and being a coach and all the things that you know, um, K through 12 teaching job can entail. But one thing I hated was going to a conference or a professional development thing and hearing from someone who hadn't taught in years telling me how to do what I do. Similar to going to a conference for therapists and hearing an academic who hasn't been in the therapy room for years telling you how to be a therapist, right? Keep your hand in it somehow. You can teach a single class, you can have 5 clients, 4 clients, whatever, but keep your hand in it. So why is the 1 intensive a month a stretch, right? Well, as you all know, if you've listened to my podcast for more than a single episode or 2, is that I moved to Vermont from PA in the beginning of July. So we're in our 6th month, but haven't quite hit 6 months yet. And I took all of August and July off from client work. So I've been slowly rebuilding my practice here with intention, slowly on purpose, and out of necessity. But getting the intensive referrals flowing in hasn't been a priority yet for me so far. I have a handful of clients, 7, which is probably more than I should have, that I had back in PA that have continued with me, and I've been doing the group and some one-to-one coaching. So I haven't really focused on getting intensive referrals in, but it is time to do it. So I need to amp up my marketing in a new community where I don't know a ton of people, where I'm not super familiar with how people do things. In a small town, which is, of course, a very different vibe than being in a major metropolitan area, right? I lived just outside Philadelphia. So, but it's time to get out there and do it, right? I've had a lot going on in my life for 2024, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. But, it's really time to sort of like sink my teeth into this new intensive market that I'm in and see what I can do and see if I can meet this goal of 12 intensives in 2025. Right. So finally, my third goal that I'm going to talk about today for 2025 is to live in every area of my life with more intention and less rush, rush, rush. For so many reasons, 2024 was unavoidably chaotic. I mean, unavoidably because I kind of made it that way and then I couldn't avoid the situation. But, all the commitments I had um, it was incredibly chaotic, right? I finished my dissertation. I graduated with my PhD in May. I closed down my Pennsylvania practice. I moved my family 7 hours away, my family of 5. I enrolled 3 kids in new schools and unenrolled one, my autistic 8-year-old, when it became clear that school wasn't working for her. So, and with that, we had to adjust, my husband and I, to the new reality of being homeschool parents or unschooling parents or deschooling parents. That's kind of where we're at right now. But those, minutiae and differences are only for you parents who may be on a similar journey. But in any case, that was a massive adjustment. I was kind of more prepared for it than my husband was, but in any case, it was still an adjustment. But, helping him through that adjustment as well was part of it. And as a result, and also just from all of my kids starting new schools, my 3-year-old started school for the first time. Like she goes to preschool, and this is the first time she's ever been anywhere but with me or with her nanny that she's had her entire life. And then my middle kid started kindergarten. So, all of those are huge transitions. So I had to be so present, so attuned, provide so much holding for all of my kids as we made this new massive life transition, like living in a new house, right? Selling our house, selling the house that they lived in for, their entire lives. And just the process of selling a house. Anyone who's done that knows that is a whole thing, right? And my husband left his job of 18 years and started in a less demanding consulting role, but it's still a big transition, huge transition for him, also for our relationship in a lot of ways. Not really the place to talk about that, but certainly we've had to adjust in our roles and how we relate to each other and relate to the kids and relate to our life. And that hasn't always been easy. Moving to a small town from a big city, that is a big change. Like your expectations about what's available, even though I knew, the grocery store is 15 minutes away, like, there aren't as many things for kids to do in the same way that like, museums and things like that, things that I was kind of used to just falling back on. Even though I knew all of that, it was still a transition for me and for the kids, right? Things just being further away is huge, like finding new doctors for them, finding new dentists, realizing that they're further away. Certain providers that, I couldn't find, I had to go further out. Like all that stuff takes so much time. Transferring our health insurance, like getting a new driver's license, like all that stuff is a lot, right? And I'm very proud of us that we've navigated this, and I'm incredibly glad that part of it is behind us. Moving to a colder climate, which I love, but still it's a transition. Moving to a place where it snowed for the first time in October. And since like Thanksgiving, it's pretty much been snowing constantly. I remember back in PA, like maybe once or twice a winter, we would have to have our driveway plowed or shoveled or use a snowblower. Now it's like 3 or 4 times a week. um, right. And then struggling a lot with finding support and childcare here that could actually allow me to work and care for, and as well as care for myself in the way that I need to, so that I can care for my family and, show up for all of my work commitments. It's been a bumpy ride. And, I'm hopeful that a lot of this stuff is ironed out, but it's been a bumpy ride. So, intention it is for 2025, slowing down, very little travel. And I'm okay with that. I really am. I'm like, I don't need that right now. Like, my parents live 3 hours away. We might go there a couple times, and that might be it. I'm okay with that. Immersing ourselves in all that our new community offers instead of looking outward for like, where can we go to do something else? No, we're here because we wanted to be here, because this is the place we used to vacation twice a year. Now we live here, right? Making friends, getting connected, putting down roots in a real way, saying no to projects and opportunities that come my way, helping myself actually be okay with doing less, right? And part of that is taking a step back and acknowledging how much I really am doing that is unseen, emotional labor, being a parent, being a mom, even when my calendar isn't back to back to back to back. And, not getting that kind of like masochistic pleasure in having a calendar like that and being like, look how busy I am, look how important I am. That doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't. And, the exhaustion and the burnout wasn't worth it. It was, I mean, maybe it was because it was necessary and I was able to get all the things done that needed to get done, but I don't want to do it again. Um, you know, actually planning ahead in my work life instead of, recording podcasts at the literal very last minute. My podcast editor who's listening to this will be happy to hear that maybe I'll be doing that less. So will my virtual assistant who does a lot of my email marketing and all my Instagram content will be happy to hear that I'm no longer going to be recording podcasts at the last minute. Being weeks late with progress notes. Oh yeah, I'm there. I don't want to tell you how many I have undone right now. Missing meetings, forgetting meetings, which I've definitely done this year, being late to them, all of that. There's always going to be some of that for a variety of reasons, one of which being I'm not ever going to have a total personality transplant. But with living intentionally, I want there to be less of that, right? I want my husband and I to know what the week ahead looks like together instead of being like, oh shit, don't forget, today Emery needs to be picked up at 2:45 and I can't do it because, blah, 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 right? I don't want, yeah, there's still going to be times where that happens, but I want there to be less of it. Let's see. An intentionally slower and more present life is why we moved here, right? And I do think after a really tumultuous 6 months that we finally have the pieces in place to like really live into that. But I will need to be absolutely vigilant about abiding by the promises I've made to myself and to my family, setting boundaries around time and commitment that I actually stick to. No surprise to all of you, I am a chronic overachiever. I'm chronically overcommitted. I'm a people pleaser. I'm all the things. I always want to prove how much I can do and how great I am at doing things, as if somehow that's going to make me more lovable. But, right? And I have worked on that a lot. But I want to work on it even more. And I want to model that for my kids, that this is what a rich and fulfilling life looks like, not working so much that you don't have time to do literally anything else. Right. Slowness does not come naturally to me for many reasons, but I know I am in desperate need of it. So that is a huge goal for me for 2025. Right. So happy 2025, everyone. I shared a little bit about 3 goals that I have for the year. Launching and filling my group program 3 times, 12 intensives over the course of the year, 1 a month. Maybe that will work out that way, but maybe it won't. Maybe I might have to do 2 a month depending on how things go at some time. And then 3, living with more intention and living more slowly. Yeah, I hope sharing a bit about those goals has maybe made you think about your goals for 2025, whether for your business or otherwise. And hey, if starting to offer EMDR intensives in your practice is on that 2025 vision board, my group programs happen 3 times this year. And I think it's the thing you would need to get you there. Hopefully, if you've been listening to recent episodes and, you've been hearing about the kinds of outcomes group members have gotten, and that can be you, right? Of course, the next cohort begins on January 20th. You can still sign up. I'd love to have you. If you want to know more about the group, you can follow me on Instagram at Future Template Parent. And of course, tomorrow, January 2nd at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, will be my webinar to learn more about the program too and about, what intensives can do in terms of doubling your rate in private practice. You can still sign up for the webinar. The link is in the show notes. I really am so excited to do this, and I can't wait to see you there. As always, thank you so much for listening. I am excited for what 2025 has to offer for all of us, and I'd love to hear what your goals are for the new year. So let me know on Instagram or send me an email. Leave a comment about the episode, and take good care, everyone. Thanks as always for listening. I appreciate you.